Through his campaigns and leadership, Napoleon has cemented himself as one of history's greatest strategic minds. His revolutionary tactics are studied to this day, and his conquests are among history's most influential. From his monumental victories to his fatal failures, one aspect of Napoleon has played a key role in all of them: his character. Like a double-edged sword, Napoleon's character is not only responsible for his rise to power, but also for his subsequent falls. His actions as a result would go on to change not only European history, but that of the world. Napoleon was born in 1769 to a poor family. His parents would go on to play a large role in his early development. Both of them would push Napoleon to be better and are responsible for nurturing the young Napoleon's ambition. In school, Napoleon was considerably gifted in mathematics. He was also extremely popular with other students. After early school, he would attend École Militaire, a prestigious military school, and trained to become an artillery officer. Throughout Napoleon's schooling period, the French Revolution was raging on. The revolution's violence destabilized France and its government, resulting in military intervention, which would provide a path for Napoleon's rise to power. After becoming an artillery officer, Napoleon's character traits, especially his confidence, earned him a reputation among the French people. One of the battles that initially caught the attention of the people of France was the siege of Toulon. With the Anglo-Saxon fleet encroaching on France's southern shore, Napoleon was tasked with the difficult job of defending it. In addition to the enemy forces, Napoleon was under the command of two superiors who were both completely inexperienced. Napoleon was instructed by these two senior officers to not engage the fleet in the sea with his cannons until the coalition troops had disembarked, presumably for political reasons. Napoleon, recognizing the need for action, disregarded these orders and wreaked havoc among the unprepared ships, resulting in their retreat. If Napoleon had obeyed his orders and not taken the risk of making his decision in that moment, France would surely have been lost. The context of this decision is very important as well, because despite the French Revolution, France still had arguably the best land-based army in the world. If Napoleon's unauthorized engagement had failed, he most certainly would have been killed due to revolutionary forces. However, his victory was celebrated across France, and Napoleon became known as an extremely confident and capable officer. Another major contributing factor to Napoleon's success was his logistical capability. This trait is well documented in Napoleon and the way in which he managed supplies for his armies. Before being crowned emperor, Napoleon relied on traditional European tactics to supply his armies, which included raiding towns for supplies. His success on the battlefield allowed him to take better care of his men, but also highlighted the inefficiencies of military logistics at the time. Using this knowledge, Napoleon developed his future strategies around his supplies. For instance, he developed a system in which food and housing would be provided for the troops in occupied towns in exchange for a note that could be redeemed at France's treasury in order to save time. Another example of this new series of strategies included his reluctance to partake in sieges, despite them being used quite often in his time, because of the concern of adequately supplying his troops for long periods of time. Instead, Napoleon would opt for decisive battles with his enemies, rather than attrition to ease the logistical burden. Despite his success, Napoleon's character traits would also be the cause of his eventual downfall. There were two aspects in particular of Napoleon's character that contributed to this, them being overconfidence and his over-reliance on military action as opposed to other forms of conflict resolution. Perhaps the most iconic and influential aspect of Napoleon was his confidence. Ironically, his confidence is largely responsible for his rise to power, but paired with his other traits, is mainly responsible for the key tactical errors that led to his downfall. A very notable example of his overconfidence leading to disastrous results occurred during his campaign in Russia as he tried to capture Moscow. As Napoleon began pushing into Russia, the Russians refused to battle him head-on and opted to retreat farther into their own country. Napoleon, ever sure of his victory, pursued the Russians into a torched Moscow and was forced to endure the Russian winter. The loss of life experienced by this tactical error crippled Napoleon's future fighting ability. Another crucial aspect of Napoleon's ultimate defeat was his overdependence on military solutions to problems. This is in part due to the strains he put upon his allies and the tendency for these minor conflicts to develop into wars. In fact, Napoleon's entire campaign into Russia may have been avoided had he responded to Russian diplomacy. The overdependence on military solutions is also responsible for the amount of nations that form coalitions to stop him. His record of completely abolishing the power structure of conquered regions gave rise to a fear in other nations that he would do the same to theirs. These coalitions had their most significant victory at Waterloo, the battle that cost Napoleon his throne. Despite Napoleon's often brilliant military conquests, he could never fully rely on them alone to manage his new empire. His character truly was one of action rather than diplomacy and negotiation, and so without a way to maintain the effectiveness of his victories, his empire fell apart. As a result of these traits, Napoleon was a phenomenal leader while in power. He inspired loyalty in his men, who looked up to him as a strong military figure and later an emperor. Despite his other traits, Napoleon's underlying trait that impacted everything he did was his charisma. Through multiple accounts, Napoleon's men were fiercely loyal to him. He was described as humble among his men and very generous with the resources they had conquered. He made it clear that he intended to be a leader who fought for the people against the establishment. This reputation that he had developed played a key role in his return to France from his first exile. Napoleon approached a portion of the French army while ordering his men to stand down. His presence was enough for the opposing force to join him in reinstating him as an emperor. Despite his successes, Napoleon died in exile in 1821 and was transported to France to his final resting place.